Mike Barnicle, your thoughts on President Biden's re-election announcement?
You know, I thought the announcement was pretty skillful in the sense that it gives you an introduction to Joe Biden. Again, another introduction. His calmness, his deliberateness, his avoidance of calamity, his desire to calm this country down. And he's going to walk us through it. He's not going to run through it. And he's going to be Joe Biden. And I think he's very familiar to people. He's going to become even more familiar. And he's going to stand out in an age when people are yelling and screaming on both sides of the political aisle. And yet here he is. Just the facts, ma'am. Calmly, deliberately, and pump the brakes on the riotous atmosphere that we cling to each and every day in the news.
You know, Claire, I was told very early on when I started campaigning against an incumbent that when you're running against anybody, it's all about contrasts. What's the contrast you take to voters? With Joe Biden, we do have that calmness. Nobody's calling him Mr. Excitement. Nobody's shouting out hope and change. Nobody's shouting out it's morning in America. You got a guy who's calm and he's normal. Now, if that doesn't excite a lot of people in most years, it just may make the difference when the alternative is chaos, calamity, riots,
carnage,
racism, American carnage, and I am your retribution. Oh. I mean, talk about that contrast and how actually the light touch, the low-key approach may actually be the most dramatic strategy this year.
You know, I was interested in a poll that I saw over the last couple of weeks that tried to measure how people felt about the two parties in terms of extremism. Because there's always an allegation by those in the Republican Party that somehow the Democratic Party is full of extremists. Not anymore in America. Most Americans agree that the Republican Party has become very, very extreme. And that's the contrast. The contrast is between somebody you know well, somebody who represents the norms of this country in terms of uniting people and appealing to our better angels and looking up rather than down, and as opposed to a party that has been captured by a small minority of people, and they're doing things in my state and many other states that are abhorrent to independent voters, whether it's forcing a birth, government forced birth on a rape victim, or whether it's the carnage of guns in this country and a refusal of the Republican Party to recognize that that's part of the problem. All of those things are in Joe Biden's corner. And let's remember, Joe, let's remember that this is a binary choice. This isn't a referendum on Joe Biden. This is who do you like better? And I think Joe Biden is in a pretty good place right now.
Jen, you've run presidential campaigns, so particularly interested in your view of what we saw this morning in this rollout, but also sort of a continuation of the message of the White House reading what happened in the midterm elections just a few months ago, which was a lot of people in this country saying, whoa.
Yeah.
A lot of you have gone too far, whether it's on guns and the school shootings we've seen just in recent weeks even, and on abortion. Just yesterday, North Dakota passed a 6-week abortion ban with only slim rape, incest, medical emergency exceptions up to 6 weeks and nothing after that. Republicans kind of burrowing in on those positions, and the White House saying, we agree, we think they've gone too far.
I mean, it's a big this is a big moment in American history, and it's hard to capture that in a video, but I think they did a good job with that. You know, he talked about, do you want more freedom or less freedom, more rights or less rights? He's bringing it to the high level that, I mean, democracy is at stake. Fundamental rights for women are at stake. That is what's happening in this election. But also talking about they have a solid record of accomplishments. A lot of people are still not feeling great about the economy. They need to prove that these things are working. They have they can do that over the course of the next 18 months until the actual election. An agenda. Those are the things you need to prosecute the argument on. Don't just rely on the contrast, but the contrast is fundamentally there. And the contrast with Trump or whoever the MAGA Republican is, you know, if it's DeSantis or someone else, in terms of rights that they continue to advocate to take away from women, democracy being under threat, voters get it. They turned out in 2020 in huge numbers to vote for him. They turned out in 22 in big numbers to vote for Democrats and to reject the election deniers. So you have to prosecute that argument, the high level of what's at stake in terms of democracy, as well as accomplishments, what you're going to do for people in their everyday life.
And it's just worth noting, again, the remarkable journey that Joe Biden has come, where on his third bid for the presidency in 2019, remember, he, of course, failed so poorly in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then South Carolina with the help of Congressman Clyburn's endorsement, and we're going to talk to him soon, rallies to not just win the nomination, but the presidency, and now unchallenged. No one, no credible primary threat, no one from the Democratic Party. He has got the party behind him. He is, despite concerns about perhaps the economy or his age, he can point to a robust legislative record. And we should note his leadership on the world stage with the war in Ukraine. And his team feels like they're in a very strong position heading forward into a re-election bid.